Greetings, I'm Taisha Essex back with another great video. I'm joined by this wonderful man right here, Mr. Willie Cartwright of the Save Sustain channel here on YouTube. Make sure y'all go subscribe. Mr. Willie, how are you doing today?
I am wonderful. I am wonderful. Thank you so much. And let me take this time to tell people to please support you. Please support this awesome sister. So we appreciate what you're doing with us, and hopefully the people are getting a lot out of these podcasts. But thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. So I'm
Thank
good.
you. Thank you for your support as well. And I'm so happy for our topic tonight. I was trying to find a way to word it, and I think you just put it in lamest terms. Like, look, should Bible stories be taken literally? And this came from a post that I put on Facebook, and I want to share my screen so that everyone can see it. And it was in regards to the book of Job. And we've been taught the book of Job since we were young, and people, take it literally. It's a sickness, and you mentioned in your book where you know other people have done bad things to black people, but yet we'll give them forgiveness. We'll say God may take this, God give it back, and it's like it somehow comes back to the story of Job, and that's our main one tonight. We're gonna just get it all out there. So because you hold the credentials, to teach about this, can you tell those who may not be familiar with the book of Job what it is, what it entails, all that good stuff?
Okay. So essentially, we'll get into. Um, it says my. Can you hear me? Okay, I thought I saw something that said my mic is muted. What makes it, those of you who know the Bible, you know the story of Job. That story is told a lot as an example how Job was obedient to God. But essentially, the story is that God and the devil kind of had a bet. The devil said, I think God said, Job is one of my best guys, and he's faithful to me regardless. The devil said, "Well, I'm not so sure, God. If I believe if you take everything from him, give him some challenges, he's not going to be as faithful." So, in an effort to, I always say, in an effort to win a bet with Satan, God decides that to allow Satan. Let me say this right because my Bible scholars will come on here and be like, "Well, you said it wrong." But so God allowed the devil to harm Job's family. So Job lost all of his kids. I can't remember the number of kids he had, but it was a number of kids. They all died, passed away. Uh, he lost all his cattle, all of the property, the livestock, all of that he had. Uh, and even Job's wife came to him and said, curse God, that we've lost everything, blah, blah. And I think these are some sores or whatever that was on Job. So all this stuff happened to Job. And the only thing God said to the devil is, you can do anything you want to, is just don't take Job, don't do anything to Job, per se, I guess killing him. Job remained faithful, and eventually God said, see, Job is faithful. So God gave Job back everything that he had. He replaced the family. Had more kids, more livestock, all of that. And we'll get into to that as we get later on. But one of the things, so to me, when we talk about these stories, um, you and I discussed this before we came on. We were taught that these stories are literal stories, and we believe these stories to be literal. What has been happening over I would say the last 10, 15 years, is that Christians have realized that they can no longer pull the wool over people's eyes because we have the internet and we can Google and we can research this information. So a lot of the stories in the Bible that seem far-fetched, like this story, um, Jonah in the belly of the whale, some of the other stories that we can discuss later as well. Christians are kind of giving in, saying, okay, listen. Maybe those stories are not literal. Maybe those stories didn't really happen. Maybe they were metaphoric or part of an analogy or analogous to what's really going on. And so they've kind of conceded that some of those stories are not real. But the important thing is that, first of all, uh, some of those stories create the foundation of the very faith. For example, if you concede that the Job story might not be real or don't make a lot of sense, or the Jonah in the belly of the whale, or even Noah's Ark is not real, then you got to ask yourself, how does that affect the foundation of Christianity. Because if that story is not real, why would the creation story not be real? Because the creation story is just as wow as any other story. God created the earth in 6 days, a talking snake, the whole 9 yards. And we know for a fact through science that the earth was not created in 6 days. There is a process called evolution and natural selection that is taking place. That is the most plausible explanation to how we got here. That is taught and accepted throughout the world. Creation is not. So if the Job story is not literal, then what's stopping the creation story from not being literal? And if the creation story is not literal, then you've destroyed the very foundation of Christianity, because it is through the creation story and the original sin that there was a need for Jesus to be born. And another story, the Immaculate Conception, right? Another story, a virgin having a child after being impregnated by the Holy Spirit or a God, right? So none of that would be necessary if the creation story is not a literal story, because it was because of the original sin that God had to reincarnate himself through the Immaculate Conception, the virgin birth, in order to have himself sacrificed as a flesh human Jesus for our sins. So see how all this stuff is weaved together. So you can't cancel one story out without tampering with the very foundation of the religion. And so why is this important? It's important because we have to go back as a community, as at first as Christians, and second as African American Christians, and re-examine the reasons why we may believe that this faith and this God that we worship is real. And if everything underneath that foundation is not solid or it's not real, then you have to question why you believe in this faith, other than just anecdotal evidence as far as I feel a certain way, or this happened to me, so that led me to know that God is real. That's all that is anecdotal. Let's look at historical. Let's look at facts. Let's look at the evidence. So that's why this is important. That's why today's topic is important. And like I said, we'll talk about Job, and maybe we'll touch on a couple of other ones. But absolutely, guys, send us your questions or your comments and all of that, and we will continue.
I'm like still just in awe. Everything you said makes so much sense. And in your book here, I always talk about love your book, From Safe to Save: My Journey Away from Christianity and Why Christianity Has Been Detrimental to the African American Community. On page 14, you stated that there were too many things in the Bible that just didn't make sense. For example, the Adam and Eve story. Do snakes talk? How was the earth populated if only Adam and Eve had sons prior to one of them taking a wife? And that was one of the first questions that I had. Well, when I started questioning Christianity, because I was starting with a question, you read the Bible? I said yes. And his question was, so if you read the Bible, you know about Genesis, and you know about Adam and Eve, you know they had a son, but then after Cain killed Abel, he went and found a wife. Where did his wife come from? I could not answer. I'm like, I'll get back with you. Went back home, read it again, and using common sense, using logic, I was like, wow, this doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. And so I had to think about it. How did this story get into my mind where I'm in science class defending it? Like, no, we didn't come. There were no dinosaurs. There's no dinosaurs in the Bible. There's no this, and you look really silly. And that's like how people, grown adults, because on Facebook it's mostly old people on there now. So I'm like, how's it that you grown and on these public internets, you talking about Job and other stuff, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to suffer like Job. I'm going to suffer like Jesus and get my blessing in heaven. I'm like, this is public, right? So it makes me think about, childhood as children. And how a lot of brands are geared towards children. Children will not be able to count to 10, but they know that's McDonald's. My son was like 2 or 3 years old in the back seat, he knew that this place was called Mall Mart, and he would get toys when we went to Mall Mart, and there was a old McDonald's at the front door, and he was like 2 or 3. So that makes me think about, how these stories are taught to us as children for us to take them literal, as if this did happen. There was someone in the belly of a well. So have you spoken much about the 414 window, and how this effort is to get children between the ages of 4 and 14 to indoctrinate them with as much religious nonsense as possible, so that they'll turn into these old people on Facebook and TikTok bothering you defending this stuff?
Yeah, if that's the Catholic Church was one organization, but the churches as a whole, that's their lifeblood. I mean, that's what makes the church continue to that is what keeps the church going, is having that lifeblood, and that lifeblood is getting kids at a young age. And they say, give us your kids up until the age of 10, in that case 14 or whatever it is, and it'll be harder for them to leave the faith, because you spend 14 years of indoctrinating them. That indoctrination is followed up with more indoctrination at the home. And depending on where you go to school and what part of the country you grow up in, that's continued through the school systems. And so it becomes nearly impossible to break that indoctrination when you get older, even when you hear things that are much more logical and make much more sense than what you believe. So yeah, so the church understands. So it's no coincidence that the vast majority of people you see in church are women and kids. So the woman is dragging the kids to church. The guys, I'm done. I can't. I know this is a scam, a sham. But if it makes you feel better, you go. And then she's going to always direct the kids. And so the kids are there. They're learning these stories. They dress these stories up. They make these stories cute. They don't really talk about the ugly side of these stories. They just show the kids the cute side, the coloring, the pretty pictures, and all of that. But yeah, but going back to the whole Job story, I remember having a discussion with this person, and she said to me, "Well, it just shows Job's obedience." And then she said that, yeah, but everything that Job lost got replaced. And I said
That's
to her,
crazy.
I said, "That's crazy." And I said, "I don't know about you." I said, "I don't have any kids." I said, "But I have a wife. I have a sister that I love dearly. I have a niece and I have a nephew." And I said, "They are not replaceable. They're not replaceable. Can I have other nieces and nephews? Yeah. Could I someday have a child? Yeah. But what I already have, that's part of my bloodline that I have grown to love, those people are not replaceable." I said,
Right.
we're not objects that can be replaced, like by going to Walmart and replacing us. I said, so how do you look at another human being and say, well, that person is replaceable? But that's the kind of thing that happens to us through religion. It
Mhm.
makes otherwise logical people, sane people, do insane things and say insane things and accept insane things. So I said to her, I don't know. I said, but do you have kids? Are your kids replaceable? Even if your kid died and you had another kid, you would still miss the first
Right.
child that you had. So that
Mhm.
doesn't make sense to me. But you will accept that because it's the Bible. So yeah, so that was part of the discussion, and I just couldn't understand why that was something that was acceptable to this individual. And I've had other discussions with people about this particular story. Um, and so, like I said, then you get some people say, "Well, listen, that was really metaphoric. It really meant this and
Right.
that." When you get to the Adam and Eve story, what you said about uh, Cain going out and finding another wife.
Mhm.
I've had these discussions with people too, and what they've done is they've inserted information that's not in the Bible. They've
Mhm.
said, well, there were other people outside of Adam and Eve.
But the
So I said,
Bible is a complete book. It's a complete book.
yeah, I said the Bible's a complete book. I said, where did you get that information from? So, and then some people say, well, there are other books out there that that has this information. Well, but we don't have those books. We know they exist. But we don't have those books, so we don't know what those books actually say, and we don't know if those books are any more truer than the books that are in the Bible. I said, what we have is the Bible, and you guys said that the Bible is the inerrant word of God. It's complete, and it is what it is. I said, but for you to add, I mean, there's been, there's stories out there of Adam having a wife named, I think, Lilith
Is that what? Yeah.
prior to Eve. If people would say, well, there was other people living there, because then you get to the issue of incest. There had to be incest, because basically at the end of the day, Eve is the only woman, and I think they actually had a daughter later on. Adam and Eve supposedly, so it was 3 kids. I think, if I'm right, and a Bible scholar can correct me, but even so, based on what we know about the Bible, and if we take the Bible literally, then that was incest between either the son and his mother, or the son and his sister, or the father and his sister, in order to populate the earth. Now, this is your God. In one sense, people say, well, incest was necessary back then. But this is God. He can do anything. So he can create other people and not have to rely on incest. But now
he could have pulled a rib from Cain and gave.
Exactly. But later on, incest is a bad thing. Genetically,
yes, very
we
bad.
We know that incest is a bad thing.
It's a crime.
So not only is it a crime, but from a physical standpoint, there are a lot of abnormalities that happen when people of the same bloodline procreate and have kids. Even though back in the Middle Ages, royal families did that to keep the bloodline pure, so to speak. But we also see what the results of some of those people end up being.
Right.
So again, you have to ask yourself, so why are we believing these stories as evidence or proof that this God and this religion is something that we should be following? So Job is just one of those stories that always I scratch my head when I read the story and I think about it. I'm just like, yo, what? This is really crazy this is a story that's every church tells this story like it's something to be really happy about. This is the obedience that. And so what it says to me is that as a Christian, you are willing to accept anything in the name of God. To piggyback off of that, the whole Isaac, I think is Abraham and Isaac. When Abraham was going to kill Isaac, had him on as a burnt offering, and was going to kill him because God told him to kill him. Again, Christians point to that as being obedient to God. Abraham being obedient to God. Well, I don't have a child, but let me use my niece, who I love dearly.
Yeah.
There is nothing that's going to make me kill my niece, sacrifice my niece. According to the story, Abraham didn't know that God was joking, was trying to test him.
God played too dang on much. Right? He taking bets and joking. He played too dang on much.
He was actually going to sacrifice. He was actually going to kill Isaac. So but we find as Christians find that to be an acceptable story. So that's actually scary. That's scary, because if that was to happen now, and we've seen stories where people have killed their kids and said, well, God told me to, those people are either locked up in jail or in an institution. So why do you accept this story?
Right.
And like, okay, this is a great story. Yeah, this is a story of obedience. And so that lets me know that this is something that you could be convinced to do. If these people earnestly and honestly believe that they heard a voice from God telling them to kill their kids, and we've seen this happen, that's scary. I mean, that's scary. Look kind of control religion has on us, to where you would sacrifice your child if you believe that a voice in your head you believe to be God is telling you to kill your child, and you would do that, and you find it acceptable in this book called the Bible.
There was this a news story that came out a couple of years ago, but there was this mother, and she nearly beat her child to death because the child would not memorize or recite Bible verses correctly.
I think I read that. Yeah, I read that.
Insanity, insanity.
Yeah, it's we have such a reverence for the church and for our religion and for God. It is everything else pales in comparison to that. And so anything that's said or done that either challenges that or disrespects that is looked down upon and is punishable by corporal punishment and in some
Right.
cases by death.
You-
Uh,
there was a sister. She had posted on a video I did. It was a real personal video I did about mothers being the real childhood monsters. And I'm trying to type to Sister Alicia Leach, welcome. But there's a quote in the Bible. Well, this it's a quote that Bible folk, religious folk, commonly say. Spare the rod, spoil the child, and that's the excuse that's commonly used for whooping your children. And Sister Ali, she pointed out that that's something that we have carried from the plantations to whip our children. It's not right. It's not cute. But we have these adults, old people on Facebook talking about, well, if my mama didn't whoop my ass, I'll be like this. I don't know. What kind of example was your mother setting where she had to resort to that to get through to you?
Taisha,
Because
it,
But the spare the rod, spoil the child doesn't even come from the Bible. I actually have that comment pinned as the top comment because that's one thing that is used to justify physical abuse of just abusing your children. And it's not right. It's insanity.
so I don't have many pet peeves. That would be one of them. I have a history of this. So I'm one of those older people on Facebook. And so the people that I grew up with, they are all over Facebook.
Hmm.
And to your point, I remember one. And this is not the first time, but this is most recent. Somebody from one of my high school, I think my high school graduation, somebody who went to school, high school with me, posted. Uh, Thank God for our parents beating us or whooping us. Or it's just like you said, I wouldn't be who I am, blah, 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 blah. So everybody commented, amen, you right,
Hmm.
in agreement. And when I posted, I said, totally disagree. I said, my mother beat the living shit out of us daily for minor infractions.
Hmm.
Uh, I said, that's it's two things. Well, three things. Number one, that's a reflection of you as a parent. Number two, it didn't stop me from doing a lot of stuff that I did. I got expelled from school twice. I was smoking marijuana behind the church. It didn't stop me from doing any of that stuff. Yeah, I was terrified of her, but it didn't stop me from doing that stuff. And three, the most important thing is that it is something that stems from slavery. And
Hmm.
if people understand the history of it, this is how we got to it. Back in during the plantation time, if you messed up, your mother or your parents were always afraid that massa would kill you. He would beat you to the point where he would kill you.
Hmm.
So they felt that if they beat you worse, then it would stop you from doing the things that might cause massa to kill you by virtue of beating you. So it was a way of saying, okay, I'm gonna beat you. It's gonna be harsh, but if this beating stops you from doing it again, because if massa catch you, he might kill you. So in this crazy mental gymnastics that we did in our brain as being part of the plantation, we believe that abusing our kids but not killing them would stop massa from killing them, if
Hmm.
that really makes sense. And so we carried that from generation to generation to generation. And then it became one of those things where, okay, we have an excuse now because we found it in the Bible. The Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. And so I've said to people, I said, you are where you are in spite of getting beatings. I promise you, if you go to any prison in this country and
Hmm.
do a survey of the guys in prison, I promise you 80 to 90, if not more, percent of them were beat as kids,
Right.
were beat as kids. I remember having this conversation with my sister, and I love my sister dearly. I remember having this conversation with my sister when my niece and nephew were younger, and I begged her and pleaded. I said, "Please do not beat these kids like Mama beat
Mhm.
us." But she had it in her mind that was part of how you raise kids, and that's so prevalent in our community. And I think that it is just BS. I don't. And I will admit, if I had kids in my early 20s, I would have probably done the same. It wasn't
Mhm.
until I got into my probably late 30s, early 40s that I said, "Wait a minute, let us rethink this thing. This is
Right.
crazy." And
Mhm.
so, if you can't talk to your kids, and I know every child can't be talked to, but there's other ways of disciplining them as
Right.
opposed to beat them. And my mother beat, I mean, she beat us. She beat us. We had to strip down naked. She beat us with
Mhm.
extension cords, the whole it is the absolute worst. Getting beat with extension cord is the absolute worst thing. It is akin to being beat as a slave by
Right.
the master. It is painful. It draws blood. It is the worst thing. So yeah, that is one of my pet peeves. But again, the Bible, we use the Bible as a defense. Um, we use the Bible as an excuse to this makes sense. It literally turns my stomach when I hear somebody black say that they have to beat their kids and
Right.
that is acceptable and that is all right. And when they quote the Bible, it literally turns my stomach. I want to fight everybody who believes that they need to beat their kids like that. And my wife never got beat. Never.
Mhm.
My wife.
She's so
She's a great.
beautiful.
I told. Thank you. I said you were an exception. You were an exceptional child, but her parents knew how to discipline her without having to
Mhm.
put hands on her, and
Right.
that's what we have to learn. Because here's what it does, and I say this, and we can move to the next subject. But I say this: I firmly believe that when you beat your child, it instills in us. First of all, it makes us angry.
Mhm.
It tells us that this is how you communicate with other people. So we are perpetually angry. We perpetually walk around with a chip on our shoulder. And so when we get to the real world, we don't know how to communicate with people that's not from our community because our upbringing is so uh, antagonistic and violent till we get to the real world. We don't know because if the same parent for the most part that beat their kids
Mhm.
also yell and scream at their kids and in some cases cuss their kids,
Mhm.
and so now the kids are walking around on the eggshell all the time, nervous, afraid, or they have a chip on their shoulder because this is all they know. And they get to the real world and get into a discussion or disagree with somebody, and they start to yell and scream and look like they're going to
Mhm.
be violent. And the person is looking at them like, "Hello, buddy. Where did that come from? We just having
Right.
a disagreement." But we don't know because that's how we've always been raised. So it's always tension. At
Yeah.
least, most people I know and grew up the way I grew up, it was always some type of tension, whether it was in the house. You walked out the house and you was always like, okay, I got to prove myself because I live in the
Mhm.
hood. So that
Right.
the women always had to be on guard for the guy who tried to holler at them and they didn't like him and he would call her names. It was all that kind of tension, but yet we up in the church every Sunday. It don't make sense. We up in the church every Sunday, but yet we're some of the most angriest people. And a lot of it is connected, but people don't see the connection. But a lot of it is connected. So yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeve about beating your kids. I just
Yes.
yeah.
So, moving aside from destroying your children in the name of the Lord, we're gonna the next story that's taken literal, and I've heard this said to different communities. I don't partake in that lifestyle, but it was used like, well, God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, and that's also taken literally. Like, I'm waiting on God to come in and destroy all this, because all y'all living in sin, y'all doing this. So how is it that the story of Sodom and Gomorrah is also taken? It's by some it's taken literally, but then by some it's I don't get the allegory in it. Can you explain that?
Well, I think first of all, most people Sodom and Gomorrah to them is about God destroying a city because of homosexuality. And that's if you really know the story that A, that's not the case, and B, even if it was, that wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. That just shows you the continued cruelty of this God. But so the story of Sodom and Gomorrah goes like this. And let me make sure I get it right. So two angels come to Lot, who lives in the city, Sodom and Gomorrah lives in the city. And the angels need a place to stay. Lot says, okay, you can stay with me. So they're with Lot, two angels. I think they're male angels. Um, a group of guys from the city see the angels come in. They come to the door, knock on Lot's door. Yo, we want those two angels to have our way with them. Lot says, no, you can't have your way with these two angels. However, I have two daughters that have never been with a man that you can have and do as you please. Now let's just stop. Let's stop there.
Right?
First of all, like that, like no one talks about this part of the story. No Christian. I've
They
never heard a
they skip
Christian.
over that.
Yeah, they kind of skip over that. So the angels, after all this happened, the angels tell Lot, God is about to destroy the city, blah, blah, get your family and you guys get out of the city. The only thing God requests is while you're running away, don't look back. So they run and run away. The wife looks back and she's instantly turned to a pillar of salt or whatever. When they get to where they're going, Lot falls asleep or whatever, and the daughters end up having sex with Lot, which is another part of the story that people don't really talk about, right? So if we break this down, the fact that this God wanted to destroy the entire city, that I will take a guess that this city had innocent people, innocent women, children, and even infants, but yet God wanted to destroy. And I can't remember why the reason. Regardless of the reason, it doesn't make sense, right? Secondly, God punished the woman because she looked back, but he didn't punish Lot for giving his daughter over to a group of men who wanted to have their way with them. He didn't punish the guys who wanted to have their way with the angels and then wanted to have their way with um, uh, the daughters, right? Did punish Lot later on for having sex with his daughters or the daughters having sex with him, but because she looked back. So not only is this story, unbelievable, cruel, unusual punishment, it is also, in my opinion, misogynistic. So the only person that gets punished is the woman for simply looking back. How
Right?
asinine is that? But for these guys who wanted to have their way with this guy, who willingly gave his daughters, like, first of all, your daughters are not property. But I guess, so the Bible, again, is being misogynistic, allowing this father to give his daughters to other men. I mean, that's just, again, crazy. And so, yeah, so that's one of those stories. But for whatever reason, people, what they get out of this story is that God destroyed this story, the city, because of homosexuality, right? That's what people, that's what when people talk about the story, this is what the story is supposed to be about. And they use this story to hate on homosexuals, right? So that's a whole nother thing. But so, again, we have to examine, all of these things and ask ourselves, why are we believing this stuff? And why is this stuff part of the basis for us having, being part of this faith, this religion? And to me, as I was doing my transition out of Christianity, it just led to more questions like, if this God even proved to be real, but if this God proved to be real, it was the same God that's in this Bible, then I still wouldn't worship this God, because this God is immoral, this God is cruel, this God is evil. It makes no sense.
Jealous.
Extremely jealous, vindictive.
Right.
And so it's weird, but yeah, so that's another one of those stories, Sodom and Gomorrah, that people kind of cherry pick. They take the parts out of it that they like. They don't talk about the other parts. And you can't even bring those parts up in a church or to a pastor or to a Sunday school teacher, because they either going to not know the answer, not going to want to answer you, call you the devil, and tell you to go read the Bible, get your own understanding,
Be
or just
childlike.
totally ignore you. Yeah, be childlike and just accept what we tell you. But again, that's not working for people. Hey, this is Daryl.
Speaking of, childlike in Sunday school, this was one of the ones that was taught the most in Sunday school. And now that, the Climax 19 is going away and,
Yeah, yeah.
got their grants for,
Thank
summer
you, Daryl.
programs and stuff. Now, Sunday school services are open. So Brother Daryl said, I wish the ark was real. And how would they deal with the smell? And yeah, can you talk to us about how Noah's Ark is taken literally and people fight? I even remember watching an episode of Unsolved Mysteries where they're like, there's evidence that the ark is what it existed here. And I'm like, how? Yeah. I need to hear your expertise on this story. That's
So the ark story, I think, was the first story that I was like, wait a minute, man. All these animals in this boat coming from different parts of the world that don't belong in this part of the world. How do they survive? I mean, just if you are even if you are the slightest of a person with the slightest of intellect and the slightest of analytical thinking. I mean, just a slither of being an analytical thinker. This does not make sense to you whatsoever. So there's an art museum in Kentucky, right? Yeah. So there's an art museum in Kentucky, and I read a bunch of articles of people. I read an article of these non-believers that kind of went to see what was going on. I mean, they got pictures of people living with dinosaurs at the same time. They coexisted. I mean, just all kind of crazy stuff. But anyway, it's really propaganda. But anyway, so the ark story, and most of us know the ark story. Noah. Noah. God told Noah that the great flood was coming, that he needed to build a boat. So here's the first thing that's really unbelievable about the story. A lot of people don't know how old Noah supposedly was when he started. I think it's supposed to be somewhere like 500 years old when he started building the ark. Yeah. So, and I might be wrong, but I think that he was that old.
he was an old dude.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be like 500 years old when he started building the ark. So the ark is where I had a hard time believing. Yeah, exactly. Khalifa. So he builds this. So God tells Noah, you're gonna build. It's gonna be a flood. It's gonna flood everything, kill everybody. Just you and your family, and I need you to take. And so here's where the story gets a little tricky. It's some people say two of every animal, and then there's more of a breakdown. It's two of every certain animals, and then it's 6 or 7 or whatever of other types of animal. And it's broken down how. But anyway, just the sheer numbers is impossible. And I've had people to try to argue with me and say it was 2 of every kind, so they can. I don't care if it was 2 of every kind or 2 of every species or whatever. That's still a lot. So the first questions that you have to ask is, I mean, there's a whole list of questions that will make you like, okay, this can't be real. But the first question you have to ask is, okay, what about the animals that are not indigenous to that part of the world? It can't exist in that part of the world, like penguins. Those are the type penguins and animals that are in a colder climate. What about those animals? How would those animals get to the ark in the Middle East, right? Or that part of the world? How do you coexist? How do you have a lion and a deer on a boat together? That's what lions eat, right? So how do you deal with that? So lions are not vegetarians, right? So you got to bring other live animals on that boat in order for the predators, the carnivores to eat. The lions are not the only carnivores, right? What about the animals that eat vegetables? You got to have enough vegetation, in the middle of a flood on it. What about the waste? Just the sheer waste. And I saw someone, there's an article that you can find where somebody actually did the numbers, like what it would take to get rid of the waste. You would need so many people, additional people on that boat, just to get rid of the waste every day that happens with that many animals, right? Then you got to look at the size of the boat. Somebody did a comparison to what the size of the boat is supposed to be compared to modern day boats. It's nowhere near large enough to house that kind.
That's my thing. Once I joined the Navy, I was in the Navy, and I'm like, hold on, I see what different factors affect a naval vessel, sailing across the water, the buoyancy, things like that, the provisions that you need, as well as, steering and, driving it's like, this is impossible. But also too, when you look at what they had then, it's like, I've seen houses, when I go on different historic tours, people say like, yeah, my granddad, he built this house with his hands. He built this. And when you look at it, it's like, okay, yeah, it's a cool house. It's still standing. This is his accomplishment. But you see, he used what he had at that time. Now we're talking about going, hundreds of thousands of years before. And it's like, yeah, this would not have worked.
Yep.
It would not
So
have worked.
so you got that. What about ventilation? Because
Circle
the
William. That's what we could
yeah,
call it on the ship. Open up Circle William, get me
yeah,
some airflow.
just the fumes and the
The
toxins
lighting, the
from the
lighting,
waste would kill human beings. Just that. So what about the ventilation? I mean, there's
diseases,
just
the
the
diseases.
diseases,
Because
the
before
disease.
before we even went to our boats, we had to get a number of vaccines because everything that was going around on there. Just
Yep.
imagine this dude. He on there with wild feral animals. I tried to pick up some feral cats one time, and they damn near killed me. So I can just imagine.
So what makes this story? I mean, we look and tongue in cheek and we laugh. We know this story is really not true. Uh, let's see, all the animals that were unknown to the original authors were left out, like Tasmanian devils and platypus. Absolutely. I read somewhere where 98% of the animals that have ever existed have all died out. Have become extinct. So we're talking about animals that's not even included, that should have been included, that's not even included. So I said there was segregation on the ark. Um, but the danger of this type of story is this: if you based your belief on, because remember, this was the earth being totally destroyed, and God using one family of 8 people to totally replenish the earth, and this is supposedly where we came from, right? Um, Scientists have done the numbers in the years, and there's no way that you have 8 billion people on the face of the earth, given the time length with a family of 8 back then, starting all over again. I mean, it's just crazy. But the Noah's Ark story is from what was it? Gilgamesh. It's a story, and I forgot the full name of it. But if you Google Gilgamesh, that's where the story. Well, scientists believe the story originated from. It's a great. But every religion has a flood story. Every religion, and so what if we want to be if we want to give the Bible the benefit of the doubt, what may have happened is that there may have been a flood in that area, like it has or like it was in a lot of other areas across the world, and people believed or thought that the entire world was flooded because their area was flooded. But that's a stretch. Bottom line is there is no archaeological, scientific, unbiased, non-biblical evidence of the Great Flood happening across the world. Absolutely none. There is no archaeological, unbiased, corroborated evidence of the ark being found. There are stories that people say they thought they found it, but everything has been disproven. So there is absolutely nothing. But again, this is part of what Christians base their belief system on. And so for me, it comes back to how, if all of these stories in the Bible are not credible, how credible is your religion? How credible is your God? How credible is what you believe in? And so if I tell you to believe, that I'm who I say I am, but everything that I've told you about me, you go back and do the research and discover that it's not true, right? If I say I'm a 53-year-old man that's happily married and I have 2 degrees and I grew up, Birmingham, and I have several awards for speaking, and I used to be a semi-professional weightlifter, and da da da. And you go back and find out that none of that is true, then I've lost all credibility. Even if you find out that 3 of those things are not true, you're going to question you're going to question everything that I tell you from that point forward, and you're going to question everything else about me, because when he lied about that, we found out
Mhm.
that wasn't true. So it's the same thing. Those are that's the critical analysis that we should be doing with our religion and our faith. Well,
Absolutely.
if this is not true, and this is not true, and there's no evidence of this, then why am I even believing in this whole package that's been? And then you got to ask yourself, how did we get this package? How was it given to us, and why
Mhm.
was it given to us? So that's a whole other story.
So I think with all that, we just answer the question: should we take Bible stories literally, or should we just discard them? And my vote is just to discard it.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think.
like hey, if you got some time on your hands, like those who are doing time, and you go to read it, hey, that's on you. But it's it's really pointless. It serves no purpose in our world today. What do you think about that?
Well, the argument that you're going to get, and this is a somewhat valid argument, is
Hmm.
that in some of these stories, we get things out of these stories.
Hmm.
These stories teach us to be obedient under certain circumstances. If it teaches us to love, if these stories teaches us to, but then you guys yourself, what I don't know what you know. The story of Job teaches obedience to what to a God that may or may not be real. In my opinion, is not real.
Hmm.
What is the story of Noah's Ark teaches you? That if you hear a voice to tell you to build a boat and get two of every animal, you should do. I mean, that's not a story of obedience to me. But there are some stories in the Bible that do teach good lessons.
Hmm.
Here's the rub. Those stories are not original to the Bible, and
Hmm.
those stories are not only in the Bible. So you can get those stories from other sources
Right.
without all of the other stuff that the Bible gives you. So it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get a good story, but I don't want the indoctrination. I don't want to have to be a believer in this God fairy guy or whatever. I just want to know that I should love my neighbor, right?
Right.
But that's not what that's not everything that you get out of it. It's everything else that goes along with it. So this person is saying, got another comment. Why do you think people are able to get past the boogeyman, Santa, or the Easter Bunny, but can't get over the mythologies or allegories in the Bible? It has to be more than fear of the unknown. Um, actually, fear of the unknown is part of it. But here's the thing: at a certain point, even adults stop telling their kids that the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus is real. With religion, we continue to our grave telling each other and telling ourselves that this God is real. Secondly, we need this God because we want to believe that there is something after we
Mhm.
die.
Right.
The Easter Bunny and Santa, they don't play a part in your after death. And I think, thirdly, for a lot of us, especially African Americans, um, the only thing we have is that this God that we believe in will somehow make things better for us here on earth. And if he
Mhm.
doesn't, he's going to make things better for us here, us after death. And so for a lot of us, we don't, that's all that we have is that hope. Now, that doesn't make a lot. I mean, for some of us, that makes sense. For others of
Mhm.
us, it's just because we've always done this thing. Um, so yeah, so that's part of it. We never let that mythology go. It stays part of us. And I think also think about this. As a kid, as an adult, most of us know that Santa Claus and Easter Bunny is not real, even from the very beginning.
Right.
But we've always taught that this God is real. So Amir L, I think the Bible should never be taken literally. I think that there may be some spiritual lessons that people can extract. Absolutely. And that's what we just said. There are some stories that we can get. There's some feel good stuff out of the Bible that we can get, whether
Do
it's
something to
quotes
make me
or
feel good.
yeah, something. But that stuff is also available in other books,
Mhm.
other faiths, non-faith. That stuff is available if you just read other books. That stuff is available if you drink coffee. That stuff is available if you drink alcohol. That stuff is available if you walk through nature just
Right.
to feel good. But there are some things, maybe some spiritual lessons in the Bible. Um, and I think as we said when we first started, people are starting to take the Bible less literal
Mhm.
than my generation and before, only because they see how foolish they look in taking the Bible so literal, right? That's the only thing that's changed that. Back in the day when everybody believed what they believed and believed the Bible was literal and there was no one challenging those things, everything was fine. But the
Mhm.
minute the internet came out and people could Google these stories and see things and talk to other people in other parts of the
Mhm.
world, they started challenging these foolish notions. And so Christians, as I said earlier when we first started, Christians started to say, well, let's kind of back off that. You know,
Right.
maybe we'll concede that to you. Maybe we'll concede it. And that's the only reason why the Bible is not being taken as literal by. But don't get me wrong. There are still a large group of people, especially African Americans,
Mhm.
who still take most, if not all, of the Bible literal. There are people who still actually believe in the creation story. I argue with people on Facebook on a daily basis that really still take the creation story literally. Like
And that's because for some of us, the Bible wasn't taught to us in a, in a way of where we're able to clearly see, okay, this is allegory, this did not happen, but there is a lesson behind it. It was anything with like alchemy, esoteric, that was witchcraft. So that doesn't go on in our church. But with us, things were put out there. I remember when it came to paying tithes, we had to recite from something about Malachi. I'm like, okay, you got to give your money to the Lord. It's not your this, it's not your work, it's your monies to the Lord. He needs it, you know. So after, like you said, with the internet and talking with other people outside of your household, outside of your hometown, you're able to see like, yeah, that did not make sense, and I can see it in that way.
Yeah, if you really want to see this in action, and you really want to have a discussion like this, talk to a true believer about evolution. So people will argue me down that evolution is theory and it's not real, and that creation is it, and that one guy, I didn't come from ape. I said, well, first of all, you don't understand evolution and you don't understand natural selection.
Hmm.
Humans and apes have the same common ancestry. Not that we came from apes, but we have the same common ancestor. So you have to really understand evolution. But yeah,
Right.
people will fight you, if you say that they evolved from something other than a human being.
Yeah, I kind
That's
of leave,
crazy.
leave it alone when I'll talk with certain people and they're like, yeah, I'm a I believe in science. Science is evident, but I'm like, how about Genesis and all that? But like, well, this is that, but this is that. I leave it alone. I'm like, look, you believe what you're gonna believe. Let's just exist.
Yeah, you're right. And so to that point, Khalifa said they can't beat you up anymore if you surpass them in intelligence. Well, here's the thing, and this is a phenomenon that I think really started with Sarah Palin. And I'm not getting into politics, but if you remember
Mm,
Sarah Palin,
yeah.
Sarah Palin, they will. People are starting to disparage people who are intelligent now.
Mhm.
So I've had discussions with people who say, well, you're too smart, or you read too much, or in relationship to the argument of evolution to creation, or just arguing the Bible in general.
Mhm.
uh, a lot of those people believe that intelligence is bad, and that we should rely on strictly the Bible and what it tells us, and that the more intelligent you become, the less. Now, there is some truth to the point that the more, and this is not, before people beat me up, this is not everybody,
Mhm.
but studies show that the more intelligent a person becomes, the less religious he or she becomes.
Right.
Now, that's not, granted, that's not everybody. I know some really intelligent, well-read, highly degreed people, which don't necessarily mean that they're necessarily intelligent, but I do know some people
Right.
who are really intelligent, whether they have a degree or not, or multiple degrees or not, but that are still extremely religious, right? But generally speaking, the less educated you are, the more religious you are, and the more educated and intelligent you are, the less religious you become. And so it is some of that. But people will fight you about being intelligent.
Right. And making you have to dumb down just to, have peace in a certain environment. You're absolutely right. But I know
Yeah.
that we are approaching that 1 hour mark, and I know you have
Yep.
another call to go to. Can you talk to us about your adventures, your holy work on TikTok?
So yeah, if you follow me on TikTok, and I think it's I gotta get this stuff right. But first of all,
I'll put it in the
okay.
description.
So first of all, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Saved to Sane. Saved to Sane is Saved to Sane, SAVE. Is it the number 2? I'm just so I just go to it. It's saved in
No
my
problem.
phone.
I'll put it on the
But
screen.
yeah, so if you subscribe to that, and so we talk about this video will be on there as well as
Yes.
all the other videos and some other videos that I've done. TikTok, I love TikTok. I can debate, I can argue with people. I do 3-minute videos on TikTok. I think it's Willie Cartwright 1906. That's also the Instagram, and I post a lot of funny memes on that. This is the YouTube page, Save to Sane. Go there, please subscribe. I'm trying to get my subscribers up. But yeah, but the TikTok is hilarious. I get a chance to debate and argue with people. I do videos on that. I need to do. I haven't done one in a couple of weeks, but I'll do one soon. Yeah, so that's Willie Cartwright 1906 on TikTok, and Instagram is Willie Cartwright 1906. But yeah, so we just do, we do videos. We talk about some of the things that we talk about now. I think the last one I did was um, what is it? 5. And that's a picture of my beautiful wife there, our business. So, hey, babe, that's a
Check
picture.
out their hair products.
Check
Like
out our hair products.
my
Absolutely.
my hair was fly, but then Georgia's humidity and rain said, no, ma'am. But I love. So y'all stay tuned for a product review of Hydrotherma Naturals. Love it.
Yeah. So that's our business. That's what we do in the daytime. We run that business. That's my wife. She created the product line. Beautiful person inside and out. I'm so fortunate to have her. So yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so and she pulled some of the strings behind the scene. We laugh about it. I said, I'm the one out front and people are crushing me and they probably feeling sorry for you, but they don't know that you be giving me a lot of ideas. She give me a lot of ideas and
Good.
she does the editing on the videos and stuff for me and all that. So we get those videos out talking about those things. But yeah, it's but this is a mission. I just when I left religion in 2015, I realized there was a lot of people out there like me who had questions, who were leaving religion, who was deconstructing, which is the word now,
Right.
deconstructing, but just having questions, just having second thoughts about their faith and
Mhm.
whether to either continue or just to leave the faith altogether or even to find another faith. And so I felt that, I think what Taisha and I are doing here is creating a safe space, an arena for people to come to, listen to some of the stuff we were saying, voice their opinion, give us some comments, questions, just a space that we can discuss this stuff and just be free to do it. But I do love the fact that it's happening more.
Yes.
People are moving away from religion. So yeah, and also Taisha talked about my book. Pick up the book. I have a copy of it here. You can get it on Amazon, or you can reach out to me or Taisha. She can get in contact with me if you want a signed copy. But it's
Yes.
From Saved to Sane, my journey away from Christianity and why Christianity has been detrimental to the African American community. It's available on Amazon
Yes.
under this title or my name, Willie O. Cartwright.
Mhm.
So please pick up this book, give it a good read. It's an easy read. I've gotten a lot of really good reviews, and not just from non-believers, but from a lot of believers who
Right.
said that it's balanced. You see both sides. It made a lot of them think about things that they had never thought about.
Good.
And that's what the book is designed to do. It's not really designed to deconvert anybody or
Mhm.
make anybody leave their religion, but it is designed to help you to think about some things and maybe things that we've not thought about before because we've been so indoctrinated for so many years and so many decades and so many centuries into this religion. So yeah, that's me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It is so great to have you. I know you have to go, but if there's anything that I can leave everybody with, it's like, yes, I do. I approach religion and Christianity from a sarcasm standpoint. Like I just approach it with sarcasm. I'm not there to bully anybody, belittle, unless you want to get into one of those kind of matches. But I'm just there. It makes sense to me to kind of take it with a bit of sarcasm, because it was, you know, steps to this. You know, it's like, okay, everything I learned was a lie. And then you have, you know, different stages of grief that you go through. But one thing that I've noticed recently, and this could be the title for another video, is that those outward cries, when you see someone, you know, post a prayer or post something on social media, it's like a letter to God. You know, that's kind of how I see it. And it's like, I don't want to poke fun at that person. I don't want to, you know, debate that person. I don't want to do it. It's like, hey, what is going on? You know, and try to be a resource and, you know, try to offer them a solution versus like, okay, I'm going to just pray for you. And if the stories in the Bible, if that's what gets you through, that's what gets you through. I respect that. But I also have to stand firm, like, hey, just that story, it may give you some kind of power, but now you have to put some action behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I thank everybody. Yes, please head over and subscribe to Brother Willie's channel, Safe to Sane, because his channel is all about this. His past videos, his new videos, the comments over there are great. So thank you to everybody who watch live and those who watch the replay. I do get notifications right here when you leave a comment, so I read them. I try to comment as fast as I can. Brother Willie, he comes back, he'll answer some questions. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and I'll send them to him, or we will see you on the I heard we cut off this video too because the storm clouds are coming in, and I don't
support Taisha, support this sister, support her, please, please, please.
You can find me at TaishaJustice.com, Taisha across all social media platforms. Also, my self-defense brand is Tiemonix, TIEMONEX.com. You get all of your self-defense gear, and I will see you on the next video.
All right.
Y'all have a great night. Love y'all so much.
See you guys.